Today we're going to go over mocking with pymox. First thing we're going to do is install mox and with a pip install mox. In this video we're going to discuss mocking, except I am not going to go into the intricacies of mocking and stubbing and doubles and anything. I'm not going to go into the intricacies of it. I'm just going to go over how to do a basic mock and then how you would incorporate that into a test. In a couple of future episodes, I'm actually going to get into testing scenarios, and we're going to make heavy use of mocking, so you'll actually get a deeper understanding of when and how to use mocks. With that in mind, let's move on. We're using the same project we used in the Model Mommy video, so we're just going to expand it to use mocks alongside of Model Mommy. If we'll open up our tests file, the first thing that we need to do is we need to import mocks. And then if we'll go down to our test, in our setup, we'll do self.mock equals mocks and then instantiate a new mocks. This allows us to, for every test, have a mock object ready for us to start using. Then we're going to go into our teardown and do a self.mock.unset stubs. What this does is it clears out everything that we might set in our test for stubbing out or mocking out methods that we may have done. So that we have our first two little things done, let's look at some of the code that we're going to test. So if you look at the bottom here, you're going to see the get query set for the party games view. We want to unit test get query set. And one of the things that we notice is if we do self.getParty in the very bottom, what we want to do is we want to mock out that self.getParty so we control what's actually returned in that method call, instead of relying on randomly setting up a party and then hoping it maybe comes back correctly. Because what we're really testing is we're testing the get query set. We're not testing the self.getParty. So in order to do that, we'll get back into our test here in the test get query set, and we'll do self.mock.stubout with mock. Then the first thing that we pass it is the object or the class or the module that we want to do our mock on. In this case, since we're doing a get party and it comes from a mixin that is instantiated inside of an object, in this case the view object, we're doing self.view. And we want to mock out the get party method that is attached to that view. So the first parameter is going to be our self.view. And then we're going to pass a string of get party. This is going to tell mocks to say, hey, anytime get party is called on the self.view, don't do anything with it yet. Our next line is we're actually going to call the get party method. So we're going to do self.view.getParty, and then at the end we're going to do and return, and then we're going to tell it what to return. We already know that we have self.party made, so we're going to return self.party as something we are currently aware of. So at this point we have created a mock. What we're doing is we're mocking out the getParty method, so when it's called in the case of our getQuerySet or method call, then it's going to return what we tell it to, the self.party, instead of any number of things it could potentially return. This gives us greater control over what we test so that we can actually do unit tests where we're testing one piece of functionality and not multiple pieces of functionality and having to do very complex data setups just in order to test. So we have a couple of more steps. The first thing we need to do is before our function call of the self.view.getQuerySet, we need to set self.mock.replayAll. This sets everything up to start listening when we do our function call. And then we're going to do our function call of our getQuerySet, and it's going to proceed like normal, and then essentially what mocks is going to do is it's going to record everything that was called, and then we're going to call self.mock.verifyAll to make sure everything was called as it was expected to be called. If that's true, if everything runs like normal, then it just keeps on going as if nothing happened. And that's it. We have our first mock written and for our get party. So let's actually give this test a run. If we test it, there we go. We have 2 passing tests. Now we're ready for our second test. In this one, we're going to test the getContextData method of our view. We're going to stay in the same view, so we'll jump back into our code. And if you look at the bottom, the party games view inherits from party mixin, which has our overridden getContextData. If you look in there, you'll notice that it's setting up the party object and a games object, and then it's calling a hasGames method that is on a model. It's going to return a boolean of a true or false if there are games available to this particular party. We're setting this up specifically so we can write a specific type of mock. So with that in mind, let's actually jump back into our test and start writing the test. So at the very top of our test get context data, we're going to start with a mock. In this case, we're going to mock get party again, like we did above. And again, we're saying, hey, we're going to mock get party on the view that we've instantiated earlier. The next mock that we're going to do is we're going to do a mock on the party model. And we're going to mock hasGames. So what the difference between this is and the previous one is we're saying for every instance of party, since we're using the party model itself and not the instantiated object, then when we call hasGames, it's going to do what we say inside of this test. This is just another way of how to create a mock. You can also modify that to be a module instead of an actual class. So the three different ways that you can say, hey, I want to mock this out is to use an instantiated object, which you're going to call later itself. You use the actual class that has a method on it. In this case, we're using the party class, which is also a model, and that model has games on it. So you want to mock that out from every instance of party that's being used in this test. And then the third is if you wanted to use a module, say datetime. You would put datetime in this area, and then you would say, use now for your function that you might want to mock out. So moving right along, we're going to call our get party and return self.party. You've seen this before. And then if you look, we're going to do party.hasGames and return true. If you'll remember from the code, we don't actually call our hasGames in this manner. We call it from a party.hasGames of an instantiated party object. But here we're actually saying party.hasGames because this is telling mocks that, hey, or listen for any model party, and the hasGames method call of that return true no matter what. So do our replay all, and then we're going to do our get context data call. Then we're going to follow that up with our verify all. And then finally we're going to do our assertions. So in this case, we've shown that we've actually tested the test get context data, but we haven't tested the individual pieces inside of it because those we're just going to assume work. All that we're testing is that essentially the dictionary, the context dictionary, was set up properly. And now if we'll actually run our tests, we'll see that we have 3 passing tests. So we've now gone through and set up 2 different tests and done mocking in 2 different ways. Mocking in this way will actually probably carry you through 90% of your needs when you actually need to mock something out, and is a great place to start. I really recommend that you try to code something out and try out this mocking on your own in some example cases, because really until you do it a few times, it's actually not going to make a lot of sense. I know it actually took me quite a while to get used to it and actually be able to start mocking things out properly. A good source of documentation is the actual pymox documentation on Google, and I'll link to that in the show notes. And then if you also want some more inspiration on how to use pymox, you can always check out the GoDjango codebase, which I have recently started converting to using pymox and refactoring all of my old code into class-based views and mocking. So I have some examples there. I encourage you to give mocking a try, and it'll actually help you shore up your unit tests and make them a lot easier to understand because you're not trying to do complex data manipulation and setup just to test one little thing. With that, have a good rest of the day, and please join us for future episodes where we'll actually dig into mocking more and actual test scenarios so that you'll get a better understanding of actually doing real-world testing inside of Django.